The ambience throughout Karn Evil 9 related to instrumentation, percussion, tempo, pulse, dynamics. Yeah, I'm not going to have, I am already over time, so I have to skip this basically. We'll go through this very briefly. Let's just say some general remarks. In general, it's a very loud piece. In general, it's a very quick piece, but as we've already noted with the dynamics, in the second impression there's this really silent part, and then there's some gentle increase in dynamics, and gentle increase in dynamics. I need to mirror this, of course, for you. And then in the third impression, we also have some kind of a decrease of dynamics, and then we also have some gentle increase of dynamics again. So that's of course to set a different atmosphere. And you can also listen to those silent parts, and you will hear that there's much less instruments, right? So that also helps to create a more small sphere ambience, right? And especially in the second part, so in the second impression, in the middle bit of that, so in the C section there, you also get that the tempo decreases a lot. It gets much slower with different notes. Pom, pa-da-da-da-tum, pom, pa-da-da-tum, pom, 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 pom. So it gets much. Very loud, very fast. Bass drops, the dynamics drop, so you get a much more calm atmosphere this way. Well, we can also relate this to the percussion. Of course, this is used to make things not get too boring, because if you only have fast paced and loud stuff, well, it's the same for 30 minutes, that's not going to entertain anyone. So this is definitely to keep things interesting, and of course it's related to the story, as I already explained. But related to percussion as well, you hear all these instruments creating some creepy atmosphere. So this is to set some kind of attention in your attention. You get goosebumps perhaps, something like that. So that's due to the percussion, and of course dynamics being really, really soft, really silent, and the tempo being really slow. So that's interesting, what you can do with that. That's enough for the general analysis. We will now move on to the closer analysis of the piece. And we'll do so very briefly, because we've already gone over time for about 15 minutes, so we only have 45 minutes left, somewhat. So we're going.
Oh. My battery of my phone will run out recording though.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's a pity for her then.
I need to get back. I'm still recording. Yeah.
You're still recording?
Yeah.
Okay. I was already wondering because there was initially going to be another person with us during this lecture, but she wasn't able to attend, right? So that's why we're recording. So, but it's working now still.
Yeah, but not for 3/4 of an hour.
So let's give her the best we can, as fast as we can. So we only have 45 minutes to go through 30 minutes of audio and a lot of sheet music. So yeah, this is a bit of an issue. I had initially intended to go with you through the sheet music very gently and to remark such things as, I'll do that for the first page, just to give you an idea of how much I've analyzed it, to give you interesting maps. I think we could have had a lecture for 4 hours actually, based on what we've prepared on second thought. So just looking at that, we have some, oh my god, it's slow. Yeah, so here you have, just above my scroll, you can see that there's ghost notes, right? So already in the first bar we have ghost notes, that's an ornamentation. We move on to here, we have more ghost notes. And then we have a triplet, so that's from the so the tuples in English. Right, and then we get this section, and this is structured densification, as I called it in English, I believe. So it gets denser because you have one line here, and then you get two at the same time. So that's very interesting from bar 3 onwards. And then again you have the same thing occurring here, at the end bar, which is shown in the screen right now, right? There's another part coming in, the bass guitar, so that's more structure densification. And then we move on to this part where we have an important motive. Yes, very important. Pa-da-da-tum-pum, which is a very important organ motive, and I'm singing it very awfully now, unfortunately. Here it comes. So that's a very important motive because it keeps coming back in the piece, right? So, and it's interesting if you analyze the motive, you will see that you initially start off with, so we have 5 crosses here. So you initially start off with a C sharp chord, right? And then you break it up, C sharp, G sharp. So that's 1, 5. So that's a broken chord. You move on to the 5th. So you move on to the dominant here. I'll just stand here. You move on to the dominant. And with the dominant you get G sharp minor, right? And then you get a broken chord, G sharp minor. So that's D sharp, G sharp, B. And then you move on to A sharp, I think. Because you have A sharp and you have a D. So it would be A sharp diminuated, right? So you have a diminuated 5, and this is your 1. I will just omit the 3 here, but we'll interpret it that way. It makes sense that way because next we get a D chord, so that's just D major, only increased a bit, so it's D sharp major actually. And after another D sharp major we move back to G sharp minor, which we already had here. And this is interesting, and it makes a lot of sense, and that's also why it sounds very pleasurable to your ear. Because of course the tonics are here, right? C sharp, so C, G sharp minor, so G, A sharp, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A sharp. Why? Because we're going towards A sharp diminuated. 2 times D makes sense because 2 times D sharp because D sharp major chord. And then back to G sharp minor chord with a G sharp in the bass line. So that makes a lot of sense. And it also sounds pleasurable to the ear because the scale degree sequence doesn't make sense, right? So you have a 1, 5, and then you transpose that, right? Because if you have 1, 5, the next one would be 1, 5, the next one would be 2, 6, right? So you have a 1, 5, then you get a 6, 2. So it's a reverse, but it's parallel. And then we move on back to, again, the 1 from a 5. Because D sharp, G sharp is again 5, 1. So you've got some mirroring effect. And that's also why it sounds lovely to the ear, because it makes sense. But it's an important motive because it comes back. And it's also a triad motive because it's based on triads very clearly. Ones that are pressed down instantly and ones that are broken up, like the G sharp minor, both of which the G sharp minor does. And you can also see, because I say it's important because it keeps coming back, you could also say that we have the rondo form, which I already introduced, because it keeps coming back, so it's like A, B, A, C, etc. So that's interesting, and of course you can find more interesting bits. So we can move on a little bit lower. Please do respond to my movements. Oh, it's already, okay, never mind. It was already there. So when you see the singing in bar 17, right? It's cold and misty morning, I heard a warning born in the air. Right? So that means that you have mostly syllabic singing, but you do sometimes throughout the piece have melismatic singing, where you look at the heard. So that's 2 notes for 1 vowel. Well, 1 word, but it's not 1 vowel, but you know what I mean, right? So it's 1 sound divided over 2 notes. That's why it's melismatic, but mostly the piece is syllabic. But there's multiple parts where the singing actually goes melismatic. So I've just taken you through the first page with some thorough analysis, which shows what I've actually done for most of the pages. Unfortunately, we're already running out of time, so we don't have time to go through all of the pages with that. But it's just brilliant how much you can find in the pages in the piece if you just look at that. So what I'm going to suggest now, and which is not what I intended initially, we're just going to listen to the piece, and I'm going to remark some things from the sheet music which I have notated based on the musical analyses if I'm fast enough, and that way we'll be able to end up nicely on time. You'll finally be able to listen to the piece a bit more than just listen to me. And that way it might be more interesting as well. So we won't be able to get through all of my notes, unfortunately, because we simply have not gotten the time, it seems. But we will be able to have some fun, I think, this way. Do give me a minute to grab a glass of water. I will remove the sheet music because I can't keep up with the sheet music and my own notes at the same time. So I'll just be screaming, listen to that. That's interesting in this and that instrument part in the entire composition, and you'll listen to it and you'll get very excited hearing, and not only that's good, and not only listening but hearing, right? You will notice the music theoretical things in practice, and that's where it gets really fun, actually. So brilliant.